16 degrees by Friday morning. So not much change in the big pressure pattern then as we get towards the end of the week. Still got this area of high pressure out towards the southwest. That'll be keeping things mostly fine and settled in the south. Weather fronts trying to push their way into northern Britain, and that will bring cloudier skies at times to the parts of the northwest. Best of the sunshine further south, and it's here we'll see the highest temperatures too.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, Matt. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
Hello there, I'm Michelle Dewberry. This is Dewbs & Co, the show where we'll get into some of the things that have got you talking today. Now, I say some of the things, but let's face it, unless you've been, I don't know, in bed with a duvet over your head and a set of earmuffs on and your eyes closed, which quite frankly sounds quite nice, but unless you have been doing that, you probably know that there's only one story in town today. I speak, of course, of Boris Johnson. Yes, he is still our Prime Minister. But should he be? If you was watching yesterday, you will have noticed that we broke the news as Sajid Javid, Rishi Sunak. Well, it got worse and worse and worse. Today, I think, as I stand right now, 36 is the number of resignations that we've experienced. By the time I've even probably finished this sentence, there probably will have been at least another one or another two. So let's be frank. Tonight, we'll stick just on topic. Should Boris Johnson be our Prime Minister? What do you think to all of these people that have been resigning? Disloyal, traitors, or on the right side of history? And as you sit here tonight, what are you worried about? How do you feel about your finances, your job prospects? Do you feel good about life at the moment? Do you want a government that's focusing on the issues that matter to you? Or this stuff, leadership? You tell me. But first, let's have a look at the latest news headlines.
Thanks, Michelle. I'm Ray Addison. Here's the latest from the GB Newsroom. It's understood a group of cabinet ministers are preparing to ask Boris Johnson to step down as Prime Minister. It's after at least 36 MPs resigned from government positions since yesterday, calling on him to quit. Speaking at the Liaison Committee earlier, Mr Johnson refused to comment on those reports.
You're asking me to comment on...
This conversation will happen in a few minutes, Prime Minister.
You say. But if you want to ask about what we're doing to help people with the cost of living, if you want to ask about what we're doing to build more clean, green energy supply, which this committee has taken an interest in...
That's going to be your answer to the Cabinet colleagues in Downing Street.
Then I'm very happy to talk to you about it. But I'm not going to give a running commentary on political events. We're going to get on with the government of the country.
Well, speaking at Prime Minister's questions earlier, Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer likened ministers quitting to sinking ships fleeing the rat.
Awful behaviour, unacceptable in any walk of life. It's there for all to see, but he ignores it. It was the same when his ally was on the take from the lobbyists. It was the same when his Home Secretary was bullying staff. It was the same when taxpayers' money was being abused, and it was the same when he and his mates parted their way through lockdown. Anyone quitting now, after defending all that, hasn't got a shred of integrity.
The influential 1922 committee says it will not change its rules over whether to push for another vote of confidence in the Prime Minister. Instead, the group has put the decision on hold until after choosing a new executive on Monday. Boris Johnson survived a confidence vote by Conservative MPs last month and under current rules cannot face another for a year. Boris Johnson's handling of the Chris Pincher row is the reason behind many MPs' resignations. Mr Johnson has voiced his regret that the former Deputy Chief Whip continued to hold office, saying he should have realised Mr Pincher would not change. But Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer accused the Prime Minister of enabling a sexual predator.
I started this session with a quote from the young victim in all this, how he froze when he was attacked. When I was prosecuting rapists, I heard that from victims all the time. Victims said they froze because it's not about sex, it's about power. And the power the disgraced government minister had was handed to him by that Prime Minister. And he's only in power because he's been propped up for months by a corrupted party defending the indefensible.
Well, the first resignation was from former Health Secretary Sajid Javid. He says he quit his cabinet post last night because he couldn't risk losing his integrity. In his resignation statement in the Commons, Mr Javid said treading the tightrope between loyalty and integrity had become impossible, and at some point we have to conclude that enough is enough.
But I do fear that the reset button can only work so many times. There's only so many times you can turn that machine on and off before you realise that something is fundamentally wrong. Last month, I gave the benefit of doubt one last time. I have concluded that the problem starts at the top, and I believe that is not going to change.
And we'll have all the latest on that here, first on GB News. To other news now, and British Airways says it's cutting a further 10,300 flights until the end of October. The airline says the measures are being put in place to deal with what they're calling significant challenges facing the industry. The firm says only short-haul flights will be affected by the changes. A joint police operation across 5 countries has targeted an organised crime network accused of smuggling up to 10,000 people into the UK on small boats. Around 40 suspects were arrested in coordinated raids in the UK, Belgium, Germany, France and the Netherlands, including 6 people in London. 135 small boats and more than 1,200 life jackets were also recovered in Germany and the Netherlands. A Staffordshire man who posted images online of himself sexually assaulting a child will spend 8 years in jail. Investigators arrested Ian Worthington in 2020 after he uploaded sexual abuse material to the dark web. More than 20,000 indecent images were recovered from his devices. In Italy, authorities are desperately searching for at least 5 missing people after a deadly glacier collapse in the Alps. At least 7 people died in the avalanche that followed. Rescuers are using drones and helicopters to help find those still missing. Italian police say the search remains hampered by a layer of dust and debris and poor weather. On TV, online and on DAB+ radio, this is GB News. Now back to Dewbs & Co.
Thanks for that. Well, keeping me company until 7 o'clock tonight. We've got the former MEP Baroness Jacqueline Foster and the Labour councillor Pamana Assad, and journalist Benedict Spence will also be crossing live to Westminster throughout the programme, interviewing a variety of people for their thoughts. Crucially, though, you know the drill on Dewbs & Co. It's not just about us here. It's really important to me to understand how you currently feel. What a shambles, isn't it? Or do you think this is wonderful, it's working, get him out? It's really, really important to me to know how you feel. So get in touch. You can email me, gbviews@gbnews.uk, or you can tweet me at Michelle Dewbs @gbnews, or you can subscribe if you haven't already to things like our app. We've got podcasts, we're on YouTube, we're absolutely everywhere. And if you're sitting there now thinking, yes, I can't miss this programme, but I've got to go out, worry not. Take me with you on the radio, DAB+. Wherever you are tonight, you are very welcome indeed. Let's start with an update, shall we? Because I've got to say, the goings-on today have been quicker than a quick thing from Quickland. Political editor Darren McCaffrey is at Westminster for us tonight. Darren, it's been a very complicated, fast-moving day today, but if you can, just try and kind of summarise the main points for anyone that might have just decided to give the news a miss today.
Yeah, and it must be fair to say, Michelle, the day is far from over. I'll do where we are right now and try and work my way back, if that's OK. So right now inside Downing Street, we know there is a whole ensemble of cabinet ministers. We've seen some of them walk in through the front door. Others have gone in through at the back. Some of them, quite a few of them, are now calling for the Prime Minister to go. Everyone from Priti Patel, the Home Secretary, we believe, to Grant Shapps, the Transport Secretary, maybe even Nadhim Zahawi, the recently appointed Chancellor, he's been in the post less than 24 hours, are now effectively telling the Prime Minister the game is up. There are, though, some, we spoke to Nadine Dorries, the Culture Secretary, on the way in, who want to see the Prime Minister fight on. But in the end, it is looking increasingly likely that the game is up for the Prime Minister. Why do I say that? Because many of those cabinet ministers, including Michael Gove, and he's let this be known publicly, says he will resign if the Prime Minister does not go. So that is why it's looking very, very, very tricky indeed tonight for Boris Johnson. Also in the last couple of minutes, Sir Graham Brady, who is he? He's chair of the 1922 committee. What is that? That is the governing body of the Conservative Party. He's the man essentially all the MPs write to try and spark a confidence vote. We believe he's just gone in essentially to a building round the corner that's connected to number 10. Is he delivering the news to the Prime Minister that now a majority of the parliamentary party simply no longer have confidence in him? That if it came to a vote, the Prime Minister would lose. And this comes after an incredible day in British politics, an incredibly difficult day for the Prime Minister, one that started with a pretty torturous Prime Minister's question time, that ended with Sajid Javid, the former Health Secretary, providing a very damaging speech in which he essentially questioned the Prime Minister's integrity, saying that enough is enough. We have seen dozens and dozens and dozens of ministerial resignations. Some of those letters very difficult to read for Boris Johnson, many frankly saying it's gone too far. And then also we had this incredible moment where he spent 2 hours in front of MPs and with senior MPs and Commons facing yet more difficult questions. We're going to keep an eye on what happens tonight, Michelle. But you know what? It could happen tonight. Let's be clear about that. It is possible. It depends what Boris Johnson will do. He said he's not going to go. Says he doesn't want to go. Says he's not prepared to go. But it is possible that those cabinet voices may be too much to ignore.
Fascinating stuff. Darren, I need to move on, but before I do, very, very quick answer to this. We can all hear lots of yelling going on. I can only assume that is people at the gates of Downing Street that are angry, protesting. I don't know, what's the sentiment there on that street from the public?
Yeah, indeed. So at one end, we've got essentially lots of protesters on this side of the Foreign Office blaring music at certain points. And there are, possibly up to 100 people. Now, I suspect some of them are tourists. But yes, some protesters who frankly want the Prime Minister to go shouting down the street. And also, there are, 100, 150 journalists here as well broadcasting from Downing Street tonight. This is a big moment in politics, British politics, a big moment for journalism, but also a big moment for the public, for those that like and dislike the Prime Minister.
Indeed, and I'm laughing, picturing those tourist faces, probably standing there wondering what on earth is going on. That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? Darren, thank you very much for your time. Right, let's cross over to College Green in Westminster right now and speak with Conservative MP Tom Hunt. Tom, good evening to you. You are indeed one of the intake of 2019. I'm going to be quite blunt here. You've got Boris Johnson to thank for being in power, you yourself having a job. Why are you now against him?
I think that's an interesting take from the general election 2019. I think clearly, I think Boris Johnson of 2019, I think he was a formidable campaigner in that election. I think the campaign slogan, "Get Brexit Done," was an incredibly powerful slogan. I think people were absolutely sick of the Brexit impasse. I think they're also pretty terrified by a prospect of Jeremy Corbyn being Prime Minister. So I think there was lots of different factors that contributed towards the 2019 general election result. But ultimately, we are where we are now with the parliamentary party we have, and with the trouble we have in Parliament and the various issues that seem to crop up week by week. And I think a growing number of colleagues have frankly become fed up of defending them.
Yeah, let me ask you this. I mean, we're talking here about changes to the 1922 committee, whatever. I mean, who knows what's going to happen there. But if Boris does not resign, he stays in his position, the rules are not changed on the 1922 or all the rest of it there, would you back him if he continues in his post?
To be perfectly honest with you, I mean, I think the extent of the resignations today, and I mean, I've just been in the 1922 committee meeting, and I can, there was a pretty much a consensus view that I detected in that room that this can't go on and the Prime Minister should resign. I hope, frankly, that comes forth tonight or maybe even tomorrow. If it doesn't, the 1922 executive have expedited the contest for the new executive, and that will take place on Monday. And I suspect that the outcome of that election will be in one direction. And I think, but hopefully it doesn't come to that. Hopefully it doesn't come to that. I think it's pretty clear that as it stands right now, the Prime Minister doesn't have the support of the parliamentary party. Quite frankly, I don't think he really has the support of potentially the majority of his own government.
Hans, purely just for sound reasons, it's quite noisy where you are. I'll leave that there, but thank you very much for your time. Let me bring in you, Baroness Foster. You see, I was about to say what I think, but you know what? I'll stop. You tell me, what do you think?
Well, I've been around the party for 35 years. I cut my teeth on hard left politics in the trade union, so I think I've sort of read the book and seen the film when we look at difficult situations. In this particular case, I think the last time we'd witnessed really such a vitriolic attack and personal attack on a leader of our party and a Prime Minister was Margaret Thatcher. It takes me back to that time at the end of her being Prime Minister. And I'm furious. I'm not surprised. I remember at the O2 when the majority selected Boris as the leader of the party. And it was, I think, made pretty clear not long after that there were those who were not really going to let that lie. And it's very sad to say. I think there's been an extended witch hunt. I think it's never let up. And I think there has been an agenda from certain quarters. The opposition, obviously the opposition is opposition. I think what's disappointing to me that it's been in my own party. As someone who spent 20 years in the European Union and 15 in the European Parliament, I supported Brexit. He's delivered as much as he can so far with Brexit. It was hugely important that we had a leader of the party who was on that page. We then were followed up with COVID. Not one job in the public sector over the last 2 years was lost because of the decisions made by the Prime Minister, along with, obviously, other cabinet ministers. So I'm not saying in a million years that everything that has been done has been right or correct. There's always hindsight's easy. You can always do some things better. But if you're not allowed to govern, if you're not allowed to make the decisions, if every time you turn round there is more and more personal criticism, and he's accepted when he's made an error, and he's always most courteous to people, which I find astonishing, some of the language that's been used against him from opposition as well. So we are where we are. And I, like you, have followed what's gone on today. And there's a huge number of colleagues. I would suggest that they are careful what they wish for. There isn't somebody that's sitting there in this party who has some automatic right to become the leader of our party. The country and the members of the Conservative Party in the constituencies might have something to say about that. And notwithstanding, we had an 80-seat majority, and the people of this country gave us that. And the people of this country are entitled to have a view about who they think should lead this party too.
Obviously, Pamela, I know you'll be on the complete opposite side of that fence for much of what Jacqueline's just said. But before I bring you in, you, Benedict, you know, you guys are essentially, in theory at least, you and Jacqueline, on the same side. So do I take it then that you agree with what you've just heard from Jacqueline?
There's a lot of what Jacqueline said is true. In fact, most of it is true. That doesn't alter the fact that the Conservative Party is and always has been a nest of vipers, full of very ambitious people, full of people that have very different views on things like Europe, and that Boris Johnson knew when he got into this position of immense power and authority that he was going to have people stood behind him the entire time, waiting for him to fall over. He knew he was going to have to be very, very efficient, a very good Prime Minister if he was going to last the distance. In many ways, I'm surprised that he has lasted this long, because actually, at so many turns on a personal level, he has let the failings of his character sort of intervene in his running of government. I mean, everything from the wallpaper to the Owen Paterson affair, all of this is stuff that could have been avoided. That is what is so incredibly frustrating for so many of us on the right, is that Boris Johnson, because of course he rode into power on the idea of getting Brexit done. Brexit was the idea of doing politics in a very different way, with far more accountability, far more sovereignty, sweeping away the cobwebs and actually a fresh approach to things. And he managed to do that by getting rid of Theresa May's stalemate that she had, and having this majority. Things were going to be different. We were going to be moving away from coalition politics, from all that sort of thing. And he's managed to massively let the side down. And I will take the point, a lot of people will come out and say, well, there was the pandemic. The pandemic did not necessitate him having to break the rules that he put in place. The pandemic did not necessitate the idea that he feels he's been able to lie to the public. I think he would have been forgiven for a lot more of these things if it wasn't for the fact that he let these sort of personal failings get in the way. And what actually do we have to show for it? There are no real tangible Conservative end products, I think, from his time in government, even though he has had carte blanche to do it, and as has been pointed out, a very large majority with which to do it. There is an appetite for sort of a Conservative revival in this country, be it in education, be it in business, be it with our relationship with the European Union. Boris Johnson has failed steadfastly and wholeheartedly to manage any of that. And realistically, as much as I was a supporter of his at the start, in that I thought that he was going to change things, I think he has to go. I think it's done. It's time.
Well, I don't know if it was something that one of you two said or what. I said that this was a very fast-moving situation. It was 36 resignations when I started this show, a mere 20 minutes ago. If you can read, you'll see on the screen that that number has jumped to 38. So we've had 2 just while we've been on air. David Duguid, I think you say, trade envoy for Angola and Zambia. James Sunderland, the Parliamentary Private Secretary for the Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs. They've just put their resignation in. I don't mean to be blunt, but most people wouldn't even have heard of, I want to say half of the 38. I'd probably go a bit further than that. I'd say most of the 38. So does this matter?
Me neither.
Hello, Pimana. Why do I suspect you might have a completely different view to pretty much everything you've just heard?
So I think that, I've never been a supporter of Boris Johnson, even before he became Prime Minister, when he was Mayor of London. I didn't think that his jokes were funny, but clearly there were people out there who did find him funny. And most people sometimes said to me that that's the reason why they voted for him. But I think the joke is over now. We're in a serious situation where our country is facing incredible challenges, not only the cost of living, but we've got a war on our doorstep in Europe with Russia invading Ukraine. We've got people who are struggling to pay their energy bills. We've got people who are struggling to put food on the table. We've got people who are struggling to even find jobs or to keep their jobs secure. But we've seen this Prime Minister through so many scandals, Partygate, from the PP fiasco to COVID-19 to the by-election losses, that have come about because there's members of the Conservative Party who have been accused of morally corrupt things, i.e., sexual harassment to watching pornography in Parliament, from various other things. Over the last nearly 14 years that the Conservatives have been in power, we've seen cuts literally impacting communities up and down this country that have teared apart our social, contract with a lot of communities. And I'm really surprised that out of all of this, there's people out there, Conservatives themselves, saying that the Prime Minister is acting against the interests of the British people. A YouGov poll today said 69% of Britons want the Prime Minister to resign. And I think the Sajid Javid is on a point here. Enough is enough. The Prime Minister is up to his neck in sleeves and scandal. This is a mess. It's time to go. The government needs to actually do its job, and it's not doing its job right now, which is to serve the British public, and he's not doing that.
Yeah, I mean, lest we forget, by the way, that, of course, we've got an opposition leader that's been investigated by the police himself. So, I mean, the whole thing is an absolute shambles. And, you know, one of the things that I think is incredibly sad, actually, is that in the 2019 general election, a lot of people felt quite politically homeless. They didn't have a natural inclination to be so engaged politically. They decided, they was motivated, galvanised, if you will, whether it was Brexit or whatever it is. And Brexit was Boris was the person that they put their trust into. They wanted Boris to be the Prime Minister. And people will come back at that and say, oh, Michelle, you know, you don't understand. We don't have a presidential system here. You vote for your MP, not the Prime Minister. But that's not the sentiment that a lot of people had when they put their X in the box. They put their X in the box because of Boris Johnson. And I just think it is such a shame what's gone on right now, because I suspect, and I can see your emails flying in, so I'll be reading some of those out in a second, but I know that a lot of you will be sitting there, you'll be maybe frightened right now financially, what is the future going to hold? These are terrible times, and the fact that we're sitting here focusing again on should Boris Johnson stay or should he go? On the other side of the coin, you've got Keir Starmer being investigated by the police. It's appalling. And I think it's shameful for all politicians on all sides. And I want to know, where do you stand on it? gbviews@gbnews.uk is the email. Lots of you getting in touch already. Dam says, Michelle, we voted Boris in and he shouldn't be forced out without the public involvement. Cleon said, the things Boris have done is not follow the promises he made when he was elected, but he is not responsible for every single sexual deviant and problem that is in Parliament. Charles says, as a lifelong Conservative, what I want is a Conservative government implementing Conservative policies and ideologies, not the current regime led by Boris. Mark says, in his mind, he feels that this is all because Boris has favoured his wife over Dominic Cummings, and that has been the downfall. I tell you what, I forgot about Dominic Cummings for a split second there. I bet he must be probably second to Keir Starmer, one of the happiest men in Britain right now. He must be sitting there rubbing his hands with glee. It's us, Jacqueline, the electorate, the people that have got, you know, worries, cares, considerations. It's people at home that are anxious about their lives. They are being let down catastrophically by all of this.
Well, look, I absolutely agree with you. And what I would say in Boris's defence, what people didn't know, and a lot of people knew in the red wall seats, he is a chaotic, flawed character. That's what he was like when he was Mayor of London, and I've lived in London for many years too. What was always important, that certainly when he was Mayor of London, they had the right people around him, because he's this great personality, and a lot of politicians, quite frankly, aren't. I mean, that's just a fact. And so they obviously did give him the benefit of the doubt. What I will not take is certainly lectures from opposition parties with regards to behaviour, because certainly there are some in our party, as we've said, 2 or 3 of these chaps recently, with sort of sexual harassment or whatever they've done, and it's been an absolute disgrace. You know, we had somebody who's now still in Parliament, Claudia Webb from the Labour benches. There are others from the SNP
not Labour anymore.
And from the Labour benches originally, who's sitting in Parliament, who had a criminal offence. So it's Parliament that needs to look at what it's actually doing across the piece, and that needs to really strengthen what they should do with individuals. Where I quite agree is, you know, a Prime Minister or I mean, you can't follow your MPs everywhere they go if they go out or if they go in a bar. And I think it's about time as well that members of Parliament and peers too, they take responsibility for their actions. We're all adults. And it shouldn't be that the CEO of a company or a manager or whoever it is has to micromanage adults and see how they behave, whether they're in work or not. So I think that's a big question. But my final point is on what why we're here as well. We have an issue in Ukraine. We know what has happened now with world prices on energy, on commodities, on food, and there is no easy answer to any of this. We know what Putin's agenda is, and they can criticise Boris for all sorts of things. He took hold of this by the reins, and we have led, as the United Kingdom government, in the support that we have given Ukraine. And I think we should continue to do that. And what is so frustrating is while we are trying to deal with that, while we are trying to deal with the aftermath of COVID, 370 billion quid it cost us for 3 lockdowns. So the economy took an absolute hit to try and get all of this back on track. And there we are in the middle of this awful situation. So that's another reason why I'm absolutely appalled, because the public deserve better.
Yes, you do. You deserve better. So many emails are absolutely flying in. I've got to say, Jacqueline, there's a lot of support for what you're saying. Many people are saying that you sum up what they feel like. We did a poll, GBNews did a poll earlier on, asking whether or not Boris Johnson should resign. This is how you guys that took part voted. Nearly 55% of you said, yes, he should. So pretty much down the middle. Nick says, Boris, do not give in to this shower of deserters. Anne says, MPs are a bunch of snakes. What's going on in the world? We don't need this right now. Dean says, come on, Boris, you're our man. If you can't fix it, no one can. I almost burst into Boris, Bob the Builder theme tune then, but Dean says he's still got our support. So let me ask you this. I'm going to go to a break in a second. You can ponder this. If you're somebody that's emailed me, and there's many of you, saying that you still back Boris, I want you to ponder this whilst I'm on a break and email me and tell me the answer. Is there anything that Boris could do that would make you say enough, out? Anything? If so, tell me what that is. And if not, tell me why not. gbviews@gbnews.uk is my email address. Ponder it. You've got a couple of minutes and I'll see you then.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment. We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, Matt. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
Hello there, welcome back to Dewbs & Co with me, Michelle Dewberry. Keeping me company until 7 o'clock tonight is my panel, former MEP Baroness Jacqueline Foster and Labour Councillor Pamana Assad, and also journalist Benedict Spence. Good evening to you three. We're also going to be crossing live over to a variety of people to get their opinions, so let's do exactly that now, because joining us is the MP for South West Wiltshire, Andrew Morrison. Good evening to you. Andrew, you are someone that has resigned. You're not backing Boris. Who do you want instead, then?
I'm not going to be drawn on who I want. I think the point is I don't want Boris Johnson. I think he needs to go now. When he does, we will have a leadership contest where the full talent available will be on display. We'll make our choice then.
See, Andrew, I've got to be frank with you. I've never really known anything like this. You're all coming together. You're all very, very quick and snappy to say you want Boris out. But when asked a simple question, and everyone wants to know the answer, because if you want to change the Prime Minister in the middle of this topsy-turvy situation that we're in, inflation out of control, cost of living crisis, a war in Europe, if you want to take the decision and the steps to get rid of our Prime Minister, why are you so reluctant to say with whom you would like to replace him?
Well, we often change Prime Minister at a time of crisis. Throughout our history, we've done that. We've changed Prime Minister when we've actually been at war, which we're not at the moment. So that really is not an impediment to changing the Prime Minister. But for people like me, and this has been a long burn, we've been increasingly concerned about the behaviour of the Prime Minister, his integrity, his honesty, and the characteristics that have been so painfully displayed over the past several weeks and months now. And it's now come to a head, and now's the time to make a decision on whether we continue with Boris Johnson to the next general election or whether we change our leader. In my view, that's a no-brainer. We have to change, and change now.
Yeah, but that's a no-brainer to you, but it also peculiarly seems to be, bizarrely, something that you won't say who you want to have instead. But let's move on from that. Because to many of my viewers, they feel that what's happening now, it's almost people like yourselves putting personal gain, personal vendetta, personal strategies, politics, whatever you want to call it, before the good of the country. Things like what you're just describing there, saying, I want him gone, but I'm not going to tell you who I want to replace him. It makes people feel like you're pushing your own agendas for your own benefits, rather than what is the right thing for the country. How would you respond to viewers who feel like that?
Well, yesterday I gave up a minor post, which I valued very much indeed. I had been doing it for a while, and I thought I was doing it well and contributing. And I didn't do that lightly. And my ministerial colleagues who have resigned a job which attracted a salary and a pension and all the rest of it. And you don't do that lightly, I can assure you of that. What we have in our minds is how we can improve the state of our constituents. That's why we're here. And I'm absolutely gutted that we are spending all our time at the Westminster Village having to obsess about this rather than dealing with things like the cost of living, the energy crisis as best we can, given that it's a global phenomenon, all those issues that are about to hit my constituents like a train. And any other leader, any other political leader throughout our history would have been gone way before now, having taken stock of all those things. Boris hasn't done so. His colleagues are in number 10 right now. I hope they are bringing their wise counsel to bear, and we'll be getting some news shortly.
Morrison, MP for South West Wiltshire, thank you very much for your time. Benedict, I'm going to come to you on this. Because I find it very peculiar that people are so quick to say, get him out, get him out, get him out. And then when asked what I think is a very common sense, logical question, well, who do you want then? They clam up. Oh, it's not the right time to have that conversation. Oh, I'm not going to be drawn on that. What do you mean you're not going to be drawn?
Well, no, I think
you're proposing to get rid of the Prime Minister.
I think that's because different MPs already have different candidates in mind, and they don't want to start the gun before their candidate actually wants to do that. I think that that's much more sort of a tactical reason rather than them actually saying that there is nobody, although my personal view is that there aren't many great candidates.
Well, who would you back then?
I would probably have backed Sajid Javid before he was the one that stuck the knife in, and I think his odds are slightly longer than they would have been. My dark horse, oddly enough, for the last few months was Nadim Zahawi. So, you know, I've got two candidates who have really stuck the boot in over the last couple of days. Those would have been the ones that I would have gone for. I mean, yeah, but you look at the odds, and actually they're changing all the time. It was Rishi Sunak this morning. Before we came on air, it was Penny Mordaunt. Who knows who it's going to be by the end? And that's because people are playing games. They don't want to throw their hats into the ring too soon. Certainly not before the Prime Minister is gone. I would have preferred somebody much earlier to have actually said, yes, I'm prepared to stand up here and provide a viable alternative. I think this whole situation could have been avoided if we'd had that, say, a month ago when we had a confidence vote. If somebody had said, yes, there are better options, rather than the options are Boris or the abyss, then we might not be in this current situation. But we are where we are.
Yeah, I do. I just feel it really strongly that so many people, it is almost a game. It's almost a kind of, how can I prosper? What's the best thing for me? Who do I get into bed with, for want of a better phrase, that will benefit me? And I think it's wrong. It's not a game.
A lot of people, I think, would sympathise with that. I certainly sympathise with it. But then you look at the fact that Boris Johnson and his administration were partying during lockdown, were breaking their own rules. They didn't treat things particularly seriously either. So if you want to just say it's all about people playing games, yes, that has largely been the problem with just about every echelon of this government. And ultimately, as much as a lot of people are saying, in your emails, we voted for Boris, Brexit, we wanted change, he has done nothing to suggest that he is in any way, shape or form interested in changing the culture of politics in this country. And that is the thing that really sits very poorly with me.
Oh, I'd vehemently disagree with you, and that you raised a point, and I don't want to patronise. It's very difficult actually doing blue on blue, as they say in politics. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that Sajid Javid, you mentioned Sajid, he resigned as Chancellor of the Exchequer.
Yes,
he did.
did.
Now his second resignations, and we're all talking about integrity.
Well,
and between none of them, I don't know what the plan is.
The point about Sajid Javid resigning was because he didn't want Dominic Cummings to have large amounts of influence over number 10. That was an entirely... But it's a very interesting one,
this is a clear example of the UK being dragged into internal Conservative Party issues constantly. I think Brexit was also an internal Conservative Party issue that was dragged into a UK-wide debate. I genuinely
think the existence of so many red wall Tory seats sort of proves that that's not true.
Over the last 20 years, I think that has been made a UK issue where it wasn't before. But I think that this issue right now, it's putting democracy and trust in politics at risk. What Boris Johnson has done, and you talked about, Baroness Foster, you talked about personality. People knew about Boris's personality. Well, I think it's those kinds of excuses that have led us to this situation. What kind of personality... No, I'm sorry. What kind of personality... I'm sorry. What kind of personality appoints someone that they know has serious accusations of sexual harassment against them to a ministerial job? What kind of personality does that? And if we're expecting that from the Prime Minister of this country, what else can we expect from cabinet ministers and the Conservative Party, who have an 80-seat majority, who were given a mandate by the people of the United Kingdom, and they have shredded that. They have torn that up into shreds. They partied over during COVID. They haven't done anything for us in this time.
Well, there you go. There's our panel's thoughts. Joining me now is Labour MP Barry Gardiner from Westminster. Good evening to you, Barry. First question. People here are divided, I'll put it mildly, but you guys, as Labour, you should be streets ahead. You should be, right up there leading the opposition strength with everything that's been going on. Why haven't you? Why aren't you?
Well, look, I think if you look at the Prime Minister's record and you look at this government's record, then you'll find that they said that they had a plan for social care. They haven't delivered it. If you look at what they said previously, that they had a plan to end the deficit, they haven't delivered it. We now have, in fact, the largest debt that this country has ever had in peacetime. So this is a government that is not delivering. It's got a spiralling cost of living crisis. It's got people who are having to use food banks even though they're in full-time employment. And you asked me whether the Labour Party could do better. Of course, I would say yes, we can. But the real test is, what do the country think? And that's why we should now be going to a general election.
You want a general election? I mean, you've got a leader.
Do you not? And do you not think that the country does?
No, I personally
do you not think the country wants a general election now?
Well, you've just asked me. Do I want one? No, I don't want one. I want the.
Yeah, you don't.
No,
okay.
I don't. Any Labour policies are.
But
are there any?
Barry,
what do you want? What do you want? Do you want Boris Johnson to continue?
Yes, I do. What I want is for none of this ridiculousness to have got to the point that it's got. This has been, in my mind, an absolute witch hunt. I think people have been out for Boris Johnson since day one. Of course, he hasn't helped himself. The Tory parties have been self-harming left, right and centre, and it's ridiculous. You present yourselves as a credible option.
So
your
you're
leader has
blaming
been
the
investigated by the
Conservative-
police,
Sorry, you're
Barry.
blaming the Conservative Party. I'm just trying to interpret what you've said to me. You're now blaming the Conservative Party for having Boris Johnson as its leader. But you know very well that just a couple of weeks ago, the Conservative Party took a poll on it. Now, 41% of them did not want him to remain as their leader, but actually more people in the more Conservative MPs said that they did. Now, it would appear from the resignations that have happened over the past 24 hours that actually now those figures might have changed. And that's why the 1922 committee of the Conservative Party is actually looking to change the rules so they can run that vote again. But do you think that if they did run it again, they would come to a different conclusion? Or do you think that they would still say, no, Boris Johnson should continue as the Prime Minister of this country, despite the opprobrium that he's brought the party into?
Well, I mean, the 1922 committee had an opportunity to make some changes today and chose not to. So let's just park Boris Johnson for a second and let me focus on Keir Starmer instead. You want a general election. You want to put to the people Keir Starmer, a man that's been investigated by the police, Barry.
Oh, look, that has to be the coldest dish that you've served yet in this interview. The idea that you can counterpose Keir Starmer, who today behaved with absolute integrity, who put the country first, that you can counterpose him to Boris Johnson, who has not just been investigated by the police, but actually fined for breaking the law, and who most of his fellow MPs are saying actually cannot be trusted with the high office that he holds. Really, to try and compare Keir Starmer with Boris Johnson, I think you're not hiding to nothing.
Well, I'll tell you what I think. I didn't mention Boris. I spoke to you about Keir Starmer. I pointed out very clearly he's been investigated by the police. Your reaction is to laugh. And I've got to point out to you, Barry, many people
No.
find it funny.
My reaction was not to that. Sorry, look, no, please don't try in any way to twist what I said. I laughed at your equation of Keir Starmer and Boris Johnson. Keir Starmer, a man who's behaved.
I just said you've got a leader that's been investigated by the police. It's a statement of fact. I didn't make any equation. In fact, I said, forget about Boris Johnson, let's focus on Keir. Yeah. He's a leader that's been investigated by the police. That was my statement. Your response was to laugh.
And my response was, and so has Boris Johnson, and not only has he been investigated, he's actually been found guilty and issued with a fixed penalty notice for the offence that he committed. So let's get it straight. But look, I believe that the Labour Party has the policies that the people of this country want to see. We would not be allowing 4 million children in this country to be dependent upon food banks in order to eat once every 24 hours. I mean, you have to remember that there are parents at the moment who are refusing to take vegetables from food banks because they can't afford the gas on the cooker to heat them with. You know, we are living here in the fifth largest economy in the world, and yet the government has got people so ground down, people who are doing a full day's work, 5 days a week and more, who cannot feed their children properly. And this government has been in charge now for 12 years. You have people in this country who have not seen a real terms pay rise for 12 years. And now they're facing 9% inflation. People are desperate. They want rid of this Prime Minister and they want rid of this government. And that's why I said that we need a general election.
But, I mean, if you're so on the side of the workers and all the people that you mentioned, your leader the other day was saying that many of your colleagues wasn't even allowed to stand on picket lines and support those people. So to me, I think that your party stands for very mixed messages at the moment, Barry, and I don't think I'm alone in my sentiment. We shall see what the next 24 hours holds. Pardon?
Well, I was very proud and am proud to stand on the picket lines of people who feel that the only recourse left to them is to withdraw their labour because they're being faced. Let me give you the example of St Monica Trust in the southwest. There you have care workers, okay? They're earning about £25,000 to £30,000 if they're lucky a year. They've been told that they need to take a 21% cut in their wages, and they're facing 9% inflation. Now that means that next year they would actually be earning 30% less than they're earning this year. They're on strike, they're on the picket line. I'm proud to be able to go down and stand with people like that who are simply withdrawing their labour because they feel that they're being treated unfairly. And I think most of the British public have huge sympathy with them for that.
Yeah. Barry, I have to say, I wasn't actually asking you about your views on picket lines. I was pointing out Keir Starmer's, and again, there's a big contradiction. Nonetheless, just for time reasons, I have to go to a break, so I must leave it there. But for now, thank you. That's a Labour MP, Barry Gardiner. Thank you very much for your time. What do you make to some of what you're hearing at the moment? I can tell you, Jacqueline Baroness Foster was not happy during any of that interview. I don't know if her microphone was up or not, but I've got Barry Gardiner in front of me and I've got Jacqueline Foster to the left of me shouting at Barry Gardiner. She was not having any of that. Were you? I'll see you in a couple of minutes.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment. We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
Hello there, welcome back to Dewbs & Co with me, Michelle Dewberry. Keeping me company until 7 o'clock tonight. My panel, former MEP Baroness Jacqueline Foster, the Labour councillor Pimana Assad and the journalist Benedict Spence. Nigel Farage will be with us at 7 o'clock. Nigel, what's on your agenda?
Good evening, Michelle. I'll be here from 7 till 9 tonight, an extended special. I think there is perhaps a sort of 50% plus chance the Prime Minister resigns this evening, perhaps around the 8 o'clock time. I want to debate ahead of that, and perhaps after that, can the Tories be saved? I'm in a full-on civil war. They're headed for electoral disaster. What needs to be done for them to win the next election? Because after all, Keir Starmer is hardly inspiring.
Oh, Nigel, you never learn, do you? Telling me these precise moments where you think that he's going to resign. You've already lost 3 pints to me when you bet me that he was going to be gone by the 1st of July. Now you're saying you reckon he's going to be gone by 8 o'clock. Yet again, I'm going to challenge you. I say I absolutely don't. We'll have another pint. We'll add that to the 3 pints from the other day, and we'll see where we stand. Yes?
Michelle, he's going. I think it's 50% chance it's tonight. He's going, and that gives the Conservative Party a golden opportunity to reset. Do they have the courage to take it? That's my view.
We shall see. I'll see you at 7 o'clock, Nigel. Pimana.
Yeah.
So Barry Gardiner was just there, doing very well, I have to say, avoiding some of my questions. And people are furious. They're saying, Michelle, why didn't you ask him about the Chinese? That's what you should have asked him about. Do you honestly think that the Labour Party, as it currently stands, you've got a MP, a leader that is under investigation by the police. You've got a party that seemed to be in utter contradiction. You've got Barry Gardiner saying, I'm proud to be on picket lines. You've got Keir Starmer saying, don't be on picket lines. You've got a party who your leaders can't or won't even define what a woman is. And yet this is what you're putting forward as a credible alternative to what's going on now.
So I think every party has its own internal issues, and I don't think this is about...
You're telling us.
This is not about the Labour Party. This is about a party that's in power and has been in power for nearly 40...
No, my question was to you about the Labour Party.
No, I understand, and I'm coming to that. Hold on.
Oh, good.
I think this isn't about the Labour Party. This is about a party that's been in power and has been in power for nearly 14 years. This is about a party that has 80-seat majority. This is not about Keir Starmer. This is not about him.
My question.
But let me just come.
Well,
let me.
answering a
If you just
different question.
no, but if you let me finish.
Is this going to be a short story?
No. Keir Starmer said he'd resign if he was fined for whatever thing that he's done wrong. But let me just say, if you want to compare Keir Starmer,
because you need to be clear on what you're saying. Why did he say he would resign if he got an FPN? Why? He didn't
because
say
he has integrity and...
I have to say, I think we're all being very slightly unfair to Pimana because there isn't going to be a general election. This is that we don't have a presidential system in this country. It's a party-based system, and we voted for the Conservative Party in this country, and they have a majority, and they will still have a majority whatever happens to Boris Johnson.
I can't let it slide.
I know, but still.
Thank you for saying that.
This is a crucial point.
No, it is a crucial point.
Pimana,
but that's the difference.
Stop.
No, because every time I've come on this show, this is what you've brought up. And no. Can you just let me finish? There is a difference between Keir Starmer and Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson appointed someone who was accused of sexual harassment to a ministerial job. Keir Starmer has not done that. There are huge differences between Keir Starmer and Boris Johnson. At least Keir Starmer has the integrity to say that he would resign if he was fined. He has the integrity to say... Boris Johnson did not even say that. He has gone through every single crisis, every single scandal, and still said, I'm holding on to power. I'm still going to be in this position.
Right, just breathe, because I need to tell you why you're wrong. I need to tell you why you're wrong, and it's very simple. Keir Starmer was very smart with his ways, a very smart man. What he said was, if I get a fixed penalty notice, I will resign. He said that with confidence because he knows the policy of Durham Police is not to issue retrospective fixed penalty notices.
Why did the Prime Minister get one then?
Because it was a different police force.
Surely
it was a different police force.
I do know the difference, but I'm just saying, if there was a crime committed, why wouldn't they issue an
Boris Johnson is hanging by a thread, and we're talking about Keir Starmer, a man who isn't Prime Minister, won't be Prime Minister tomorrow, and will not be Prime Minister in 3 years' time. I am going to have a little poking
Boris Johnson is not going to resign. That's for sure.
I'm happy here to be a Conservative and be absolutely grilled and defend my party or do whatever. But equally, if you come on here or a panel or you stand up in Parliament, if you are also a politician elected, whether you're a councillor, you are still here also to be able to.
And I'm
put
proud
your
to represent.
forward.
And I'm proud to represent my party. I think my party has integrity.
Order. That is it. Look at the time, everyone. It's almost 7 o'clock, which means it's almost time for Nigel. Teresa, I'm going to end with your thoughts. She's at home. She says to me, nothing Boris could do would lose my support. He is the only man for the job, and there is no worthy replacement. Pimana says that is madness. I'll leave you to decide which one's right. Have a fantastic evening. Thank you to my panel. I'll see you tomorrow.
Hello again, I'm Stephen Keats with your latest Met Office forecast. And for the next few days, we're looking at an increasing amount of fine, dry, and for quite a lot of us, sunny and increasingly warm weather to come across the UK. A bit cloudy, though, towards the northwest, and that's because here we'll be closest to these Atlantic weather fronts, just toppling around this area of high pressure, which is otherwise maintaining a relatively fine settled period. This cold front, fairly weak feature, not a lot on it as it comes southwards across central parts of the UK down towards parts of the south overnight tonight and into the first part of Thursday. A few spots of rain, but many places not really seeing much at all. To its north, we'll see the clouds breaking up a bit, so some clear spells for parts of Scotland, northern England to end the night.